It's 10 o'clock, by that clock at least. I'd like to welcome you to Litchfield's Town Deliberative Session. My name is John Regan. I live at 9 Chasebrook Circle with my lovely wife, Patricia. You met her coming in. And one son, Daniel. I'm your town and school district moderator, and I'll preside over this evening's meetings. Mr. Phil Reed is still our vice moderator. Thank you, Phil. A few administrative announcements. State law prohibits smoking anywhere in school grounds. Please do not light up. Restrooms are located just past the auditorium on your right. Food and drink are not allowed. Water's okay. It's against school district policy to leave flyers on vehicles parked on school property, so please don't do that. Before we begin the meeting, please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll go through some introductions. Let's see. Mr. Perry, could you introduce the selectmen, please?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending. It'd always be nice to see if we had a fuller room, but with what we have today, we'll move forward. I'd like to introduce Town Clerk Tax Collector, Terry Brienne. Our Town Administrator, the new Town Administrator, Troy Brown, who's doing very well. He stepped right into Jason's role. We're running smooth. Most of this stuff happened today because Troy's doing such a good job. Next is the Vice Chair, John Brunel. Next, we have Frank Byron, who's also state rep of yours. We have Brent Lemire, and we have our town attorney, I forgot. Mark Puffer. Okay? I'd also like to recognize today that we have Pat Jewett in the audience. So if everybody could give Pat a round of applause. Now I will introduce Cindy Kuchar so she can tell you all her members on the budget committee.
Thank you and good morning. As I was introduced, I'm Cynthia Couture. I am the current chair of the Budget Committee. I have Kerry Douglas, who is my vice chair, Ray Peoples, Chris Betscucci, Bill Spencer unfortunately couldn't be here today, Dan Valancourt, Bob Keating. Frank Byron is our selectman's representative to the Budget Committee, and Brian Bork is the school board's representative to the Budget Committee.
Thank you. Okay, we'll get right into the moderator's rules. Litchfield is operating under what is known as Senate Bill Number 2 procedures. This means that our function this evening is to review and discuss the warrant articles that have been presented here today and for us to vote on by official ballot on Election Day. Election Day is on March 8th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Polls at I just said that. According to state law, town and school district meetings are run by the moderator's rules. This means that the moderator sets the ground rules for the meeting. However, law also allows you to overrule the moderator's ruling by approving a motion to do so by simple majority vote. For this deliberative session, the moderator will read each warrant article and recognize a sponsor to speak about it. Then the moderator will open the floor for discussion. When you come to ask questions or discuss an article at any microphone here today, you see them at the front, please clearly state your name and street address so that the clerk can hear you and she can write it down. If a voter wishes to propose an amendment to an article, he or she must have the amendment moved and seconded before it can be discussed. If we make no amendments to these warrant articles, then they will appear on the ballot as you see them today. If we do make amendments to these warrant articles, then they'll appear on the ballot as amended. Amendments to warrant articles must be handed to the moderator in writing. Index cards are available here at the front if you need them. Note that an amendment cannot change the primary intent, cannot change the primary subject article described in the article. The maker of a motion to amend an article will have the first opportunity to speak to it. Each proposed amendment will be brought to closure before any other amendment is discussed. At the CHS auditorium, non-voters may sit in the corners to the right. As you enter the auditorium, all non-voters, please raise your hand. Any non-voters out there? I'll remember you. Okay. As you entered the building tonight, the ballot clerks gave each registered voter a sheet of yes/no ballots. You saw them, the yellow ballots. You each should have one of these. These are yours to use for secret ballots. Please do not drop them on the floor or leave them behind if you leave before the close of the meeting. Only those voters who are on the checklist as qualified voters are permitted to vote to amend an article. If the moderator receives a complaint or notices a non-voter voting, then he will require the non-voter to leave the auditorium. The moderator must conduct a secret yes/no ballot when 5 voters make a written request prior to a voice, hand, standing, or division vote on the article. The moderator must conduct secret yes/no ballots when 7 or more voters challenge any vote to amend an article immediately after the vote is declared by the moderator and before any other business is begun. Approval of all warrant article amendments at the deliberative session shall be by simple majority vote. A voice vote will be the primary method of voting. If the moderator cannot distinguish a clear majority with a voice vote, then a vote by hand will be taken. Active campaigning for your favorite warrant article, handout, standing and with signs is allowed in the hall outside the auditorium. Active campaigning within the auditorium, other than to discuss an article when invited to do so, is prohibited. The deliberative session is a forum at which we ask questions. More importantly, it's a place for debate. Proper respect and decorum will be expected at all times. Every effort will be made to give recognition to all wishing to speak. If you want to speak, then you must come to a microphone to do so. Board members, if you're speaking as a board member discussing an article, you may remain on stage. If you're offering your opinion as a citizen, then please move to the floor microphones. All those who speak are to keep their remarks pertinent to the motion. No negative motions, no personal attacks, no profanity. All speakers will direct their remarks to the moderator. When a question is asked, the moderator will call upon the appropriate person to respond to that question. The moderator will allow one follow-up question when others are waiting to speak and will not allow running discussions. Best I can. A motion to call the question and stop discussion must be properly seconded before it can be discussed. Where's Mike? He's not out there. Voters who speak to an article may not immediately call the question in order to stop discussion about it. A motion to table an article will not be in order unless it is to table until a specific time and place before the close of this meeting. A motion to consider or restrict reconsideration of an article after discussion is closed will not be in order unless seconded and approved. Reconsidered articles must be discussed and closure reached before the end of the meeting. A motion to adjourn or recess will not be accepted until all warrant articles have been discussed. Members of boards and committee members and voters will refrain from using acronyms as best you can. About halfway through, I'll propose that we have a break. If anyone would like to stand up and offer, accolades or thank yous, then you're welcome to do so. First point of order. It is your prerogative to permit non-voters to speak at this meeting. It has been customary to allow employees, council, and non-registered residents to speak at these meetings. If it is your wish to continue to do so, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I need 3 guys to be ballot box collectors. 1, 2, Leo, 3, 4. Okay, good. Thank you, guys. Shall we begin? Article 1, election of officers. Suspect there's no amendments here. To select a ballot by following town offices: selectmen 3-year, budget committee 3-year, cemetery trustee 3-year term, library trustee 3-year term, trustees of trust funds 3-year term, supervisor of the checklist 6-year term. Any discussion on the article? Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Article 2, it's a sign ordinance. Are you in favor of the adoption of amendment number 1 as proposed by the planning board for the town of Litchfield zoning ordinance as follows? Amend section 1500 sign ordinance to comply with the recent Reed versus Town of Gilbert, Arizona Supreme Court decision. AZ Supreme Court decision? That's what Arizona means, right? Is that AZ? Yeah. Clarifying the right to free speech and content-based signs. Proposed amendments delete all provisions relevant to real estate, development, property signs, and agricultural UPIC signs, as they are considered content-based and invalid under the recent decision. Section 1503.02, relative to residential district home occupation signs, is proposed to be amended to allow signs for all property owners in the residential district, not just home occupations. Additionally, a new provision is proposed to allow for temporary signs to be placed for 30 days without approval or a permit. A definition of temporary signs is proposed to be added to Section 200, definitions. This amendment has Planning Board approval. Any discussion on Article 2? None. You'll find it on the ballot as written. Article 3, setbacks of sheds and structures on Albuquerque. Are you in favor of the adoption of Amendment Number 2 as proposed by the Planning Board for the Town of Litchfield zoning ordinance as follows? Amend Section 502.03 of the residential district to follow sheds less than or equal to 192 square feet to be set back a minimum of 10 feet from the side of and rear lot lines. Further, to reduce the building or structures setback from Albuquerque Avenue from 75 feet to 50 feet, consistent with the setback required for all other public rights of way. The amendment has Planning Board approval. Any discussion on this article, number 3? Hearing none, we'll find it on the ballot as written. Article number 4, table of dimensional standards. Are you in favor of the adoption of Amendment number 3 as proposed by the Planning Board for the Town of Litchfield zoning ordinance as follows? Amend the zoning ordinance to relocate all dimensional standards, frontage, setbacks, and lot size, to a new single table of dimensional requirements in Section 300. Delete all relocated content from Sections 500 to 1,000. There are no proposed changes to the dimensional requirements currently in effect, with the exception of those within the residential district. The residential district side and rear setbacks for sheds less than or equal to 192 square feet is proposed to be reduced from 20 to 10 feet, and the setback from Albuquerque Ave for all buildings and structures is proposed to be reduced from 75 to 50 feet. Also within the residential district, uses other than single-family residential and two-family residential are proposed to have a minimum of 150 feet of frontage and a minimum contiguous acre of dry land to be consistent with the requirements for single-family residential in the same district. This amendment has Planning Board approval. Any discussion on this article? Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Number 5, definitions and aquifer district, protection district. Are you in favor of the adoption of Amendment Number 4 as proposed by the Planning Board for the Town of Litchfield zoning ordinance as follows? Amend Section 200, definitions, to remove site features such as fences and retaining walls from the definition of structure and add a definition of public right-of-way. Public right-of-way means Class 1 through Class 6 highways as defined in New Hampshire RSA 229, or streets shown on subdivisions and/or site plan plats approved by the Litchfield Planning Board. Amend Section 1252.00 of the Aquifer Protection District to correct the source citation for the original aquifer delineation study. This amendment has Planning Board approval. Further discussion on this article? Hearing none, we'll find it on the ballot as written. Article number 6, operating budget. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriation by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth in the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $5,395,953. Should this article be defeated, the budget shall be $5,359,917, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Town of Litchfield or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13 Section 10 and Section 16 to take up the issue of revised operating budget only. Estimated 2016 tax rate increase is 13 cents. This is recommended by the School Board 500 and recommended by the Budget Committee 530. Mr. Byron to speak to the article.
School Board?
What?
He said recommended by the school board.
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500 and recommended by the Budget Committee 530. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
You're welcome.
I'm glad the school board took an interest in our budget. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for attending our deliberative session. I'm going to go through a couple slides for you to kind of summarize what this budget includes, what it doesn't include, that type of thing. The town budget as submitted to you includes an increase of $163,475 over last year's approved budget. Now, that is just the budget warrant article to budget warrant article. So the 2015 budget warrant article to the 2016 budget warrant article. This represents an increase of 3.1% over the 2015 budget. The budget is $36,236 above the default budget. So if you look at the warrant article, you'll see that there's a difference there between the two of them by that amount. And both, it is expected that both the revenues for the town as well as the town valuation are projected to maintain their current status, so they're relatively flat going from 2015 to 2016. Couple points in terms of areas of increase and decrease. There was a decrease in terms of information technology, the amount of about $27,000. Personnel administration increased by $36,000, and a lot of that is due to an increase of about 10%, an expected increase of about 10% in our healthcare costs that we expect to see coming up in 2016. That'll impact us in sometime around May or June timeframe when the final numbers will be out. Road agent, we have a project that has been given to us by the Environmental Protection Agency, which we cannot avoid. That project is to do stormwater management, and we have budgeted $20,000 to help us with some type of a consultant in order to do stormwater management planning. This is a non-optional, non-get-out-of-jail type of program that the EPA has put on to states, not just New Hampshire, but other states as well. It has taken them several years to try and get this up and running, and they finally have issued the final rules, that type of thing. And lastly, solid waste has increased by about $18,000, and that's due to additional coverage and some changes in the wage and salary schedule. Areas of reduction that were taken were some training areas in the police department budget, welfare, overtime for the police department, consulting services, legal, and ambulance, as well as reductions, as you would expect, in energy costs, such things as oil, gasoline, and propane. In case you haven't noticed, our gasoline and propane oil costs have been dropping lately. Hopefully they will continue to drop. So how will this affect the town home? If you approve the budget, and this is just, again, the budget warrant article, the budget warrant article for a $250,000 home will increase taxes by about $32.50. For a $400,000 home, it'll increase taxes by about $52. And that's the end of my presentation.
You want to read the
So, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make an amendment to the town budget. The amendment will be to add $30,000 into the budget, bringing the total to $5,425,953.
Do we have a second for this motion? Second. Discussion on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. During discussions of the budget, the Board of Selectmen had put into the budget $30,000 to continue a program that was approved by the voters last year. In 2015, a warrant that the voters overwhelmingly approved added $30,000 into that year's funds for the town, with the understanding that this would be an ongoing and continuing program. This program is a result of trying to get all of the town's employees lined up and appropriately graded and adjusted. In the past, the town had used a step system. The step system required that all employees would be receiving a jump to a new step and hence a new salary every year. This time, what we're going to, and what the Board of Selectmen approved in 2012, was a program to use a grade and an assignment of an employee to a labor grade system. And they would receive an increase based upon their performance. In other words, it's a merit-based system. Even though the warrant article stated last year that this would be a multi-year program, it was felt this year that it would not be included in the budget, and it was moved to a warrant article. When that warrant article comes up, that'll be discussed as a separate issue. The feeling of the Board of Selectmen is that this should be included in the budget. And during deliberation on this at the Budget Committee, there were all types of discussion points that were brought up. Most of them centered around the economy. A lot of them centered around the fact that people could not afford it because things were not very good in the town of Litchfield. So I've collected some information. The information I collected comes from various sources. They're not just pieces of information that I've picked off the top of my head. I will provide you with information on unemployment trends for the town of Litchfield. This is from the state of New Hampshire, and it's from a report titled The New Hampshire Cities and Towns Benchmarked Unemployment Data. In January of 2013, unemployment in Litchfield was 6.4%. In January of 2014, it was 6.1%. In January of 2015, it was 5.1%. And in December of 2015, which is the latest data point that we have, it was down to 3.3%. As you can see, it's been very much improving over the course of the years. The state of New Hampshire Employment Security, in a press release January 20th, 2016, stated, and I quote, "The unadjusted December 2015 unemployment rate for New Hampshire was 2.9%, a decrease of 0.3 percentage points from the November rate, which remained at 3.2% after revision. The December 2014 unadjusted rate was 3.8%, end of quote. From our own town, motor vehicle registrations, the revenue for 2012, it was $1.27 million, 2013, $1.32 million, 2014, $1.43 million, and 2015, $1.55 million. Registrations are increasing, meaning that the economy is getting better. Titles for new cars. In 2012, it was 1629 new titles. 2013, 1672. 2014, 1755. And 2014, 1755. 2015, 1795. Balances of unpaid taxes to the town of Litchfield. 2012, 409,600. 2013, 487,000, and then it started a decrease to 2014 of 391,000, 2015, 386,000. And that's in the face of increasing total tax commitment that was paid into the town. I've also heard that the graph that was selected, or the salaries that were selected by the Board of Selectmen, were utilizing inappropriate data. I was part of the group, along with most of the other selectmen who were present here as well. And when that data was put together and the grades were determined, we utilized data that was obtained from other comparable towns in the state of New Hampshire for employee grades, as well as the wage ranges. We also utilize state of New Hampshire employee wage ranges. And it's also been stated during this discussion that the economy has not seen any significant changes in terms of inflation over the course of the years. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics news released on October 30th, 2015, it states, compensation costs for the state of New Hampshire for the state and local government work has increased 2.3% for the 12-month period ending September 2015. In September 2014, the increase was 2.1%. Wages and salaries increased by 1.8% for the 12-month period ending September 2015, and a year earlier, the increase was 1.6%. Obviously, I don't make this up. This is from known, reliable sources, and it clearly states that the economy is getting better, and it clearly relates to the fact that Litchfield as a community is getting better. We have been trying to, since 2012, get this system put in place for the town. We finally got it funded last year with a warrant article that said it would be an ongoing effort. We're asking you, the voters, to continue that again this year by approving this $30,000 addition to the budget so that we can make these changes. Thank you very much.
Further discussion on the proposed amendment?
Andrew Cotter, 6 Moose Hollow Road. Mr. Byron, is there any concerns from the Board of Selectmen to have that as a separate article? To your point earlier, it is listed as separate Article 9.
When we get to Article 9, the Board of Selectmen will take and do some, make an adjustment to that. So we will address it at that point.
Further discussion? Yeah.
Hi, Carrie Douglas, member of the Budget Committee. I voted against the warrant article this year. Now, one of the things that bothers me about this is when we had the discussion last year, it was understood that every year following, so 3 years, this would show up as a warrant article, which they did and was Article 9. So in trying to do it in this manner, now we're trying to circumvent the discussion we had last year throughout the budget process. Secondly, the reason I voted in favor of it last year is I believed that there would be small increases distributed throughout the town employee pool. However, looking at how it was distributed, 2 people received 50%. That's not what I expected. That's not what I was led to believe. That's not what I supported. And since this year, looking at the numbers, it's not everybody's receiving a little bump. There are some significant increases that these people are going to be receiving. Are they entitled to them? I don't, that's a matter of discussion. But put it before the voters. That's what we did. Article 9. Let the people choose whether this is something they want to support. This is what the Budget Committee and this Board of Selectmen agreed to last year. And so, quite frankly, I'm disappointed in this motion. And I will be voting against this amendment because the agreement was, it was going to be, I'm sorry. You're right, I can't speak in favor of what I'm going to do, but the agreement was it would be a warrant article. It's currently a warrant article. Whether the Budget Committee supports it or not, it still goes to the voters. Let the people decide. Thanks.
Further discussion on the amendment, the proposed amendment?
Last year, the Budget Committee was presented with this as a warrant article. It went through, which said it would, in the warrant article, would be a 3-year program. There was no discussion or no decision made that we would do it as a warrant article every year afterwards.
Mr. Reed?
Phil Reed, 7 Forest Lane. I frankly don't remember from last year's discussion that this would be brought up each and every year. My memory of the discussion last year that this was a solid program to transition our pay administration system for the employees we're talking about into a more merit-related than whether or not you're present for duty or not system. I frankly think that putting this as a separate warrant article this year is contrary to what I voted for last year, and that it is, if I am correct, I think it's morally irresponsible to put it as a separate warrant article, and it should be part of the budget.
Further discussion on the proposed amendment to Article number 6? Yep. Yes.
A few issues about this specific warrant. In my opinion, it's got nothing to do really with the raises or people deserving them, and I know that came up during our discussion during raises of non-union employees. The first reaction was, don't you think the employees deserve raises? It's got nothing to do with that in my mind. I was clear when I spoke about it. Double everybody's salary for all I care. If that's what they deserve, that's what they're earning, that's what the job warrants, do it. With a lot of issues when it comes to me and my decisions, it's about process, and this is a personal decision with the voters. I know when this was discussed at the Budget Committee last year that it was not deemed to be a 3-year thing where it's automatic. I think it's irresponsible to put this in the budget and not leave it up to the voters. You guys own this town. The employees work for you. You need to base the decision on raises based upon your own personal lives, your own personal opinions, and not just leave it up to the people up on the stage to just pick a schedule and continue to give the raises. Last year, Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee voted unanimously to include the $30,000 in the budget. It was spoken that it was supposed to be an ongoing plan, but the warrant did not say that you're voting for $30,000 this year with a total outlay of $90,000 over 3 years. It didn't say that. If it said that, then I might agree that you guys were voting for $90,000. The warrant said you were voting for $30,000. So if that's the case, we need to really scrutinize future warrants, because if you vote for 1 year and it means that you are locking into additional years, you need to know what that amount is. And the people up on the stage need to tell you that. Because I don't know anybody that said, I'm voting for $30,000 this year, but it's really $90,000. The wage issue, the people, there's two sides of the ledger here. When you're voting to give the town employees raises, and again, maybe much deserved, but you're also voting to take that money a little bit from everybody in the town. That's why I also think the people in this town need to have a choice. Mr. Byron just recited a whole list of numbers and statistics. Now, I could submit, you could pick another set of statistics out to prove the economy is not good. I used to go through that process years ago, and I played that same game, and I just realized after time it's a game, because you could find any statistic to justify any point of view you want. In the past, cost of living increases was always used as, well, you deserve a raise because the cost of living increases. That didn't come up today because the cost of living increase is zero. Gas is way down, costs are way down. We also heard that people in Litchfield are doing really good. Car registrations are going up. We use that as a benchmark. Well, other people could say, because the economy was so bad for so many years, people held on to their cars for 5, 6, 7, 8 years longer than they would, therefore paying much less in registrations. And it got to the point where whether they could afford it or not, they had to go out and purchase a new car because the other one just couldn't be fixed anymore. So therefore registrations went up. The only point I'm trying to make is I'm not trying to say that people in Litchfield are doing great or the economy is horrible. I'm just trying to make the point that any point could be made by using any set of statistics you want to pick out of a hat. I still think this is something that needs to go to the voters. I'm disappointed that the selectmen are choosing to pull this out. There was a process we adhered to last year, and in my opinion, it worked. That process was let you decide, and you decided to give the raises. This year, because it didn't go 100%, it's still recommended. The selectmen feel, well, you know what, let's not give them a choice now. Let's bury it in the budget. In that case, if the budget passes, they could say, look, the vote is recommended. That's why when we hear a lot of times, you guys voted for it, you have to dig deep into that. There's a lot of things in the budget that are just buried in the budget, so you need to vote no on the entire budget because you feel strongly against this. I say leave it out of the budget. The process is working. The few budget committee members that voted against it this year said, it's only this year. Let's wait. There's a lot going on this year, presidential election. The economy, again, depending upon your own situation and circumstances, is good or bad. There are people in this town that are making tons of money. They're in great jobs. They're getting huge raises every year. A few $100 increase in taxes every year is not going to affect them. Then there's some other people that maybe not. They couldn't get a raise. They're working a little harder. And then there's other ones that a few $100 additional in taxes is really going to be struggling for them. My only point is, I personally am not against the raises. I just think it should be a vote that you guys make on your own and see what happens. Sir?
I'd like to call for a vote.
We have people in line.
Good morning, Joan McKibben, Whittemore Drive. The larger question here is, it is a warrant article, but it's not recommended by the Budget Committee, which sometimes can be the kiss of death for a warrant article. So why, if it is on here the way the Budget Committee wanted, it's not recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 3 to 5?
Ms. Couture?
It wasn't recommended by the reasons that Mr. Byron stated, the economy, and those various statements he made. Some of the other pieces of information that were presented at the time the Budget Committee discussed this was the minutes from last year, the original $30,000 in last year's budget. And so from the minutes during that discussion a year ago, Mr. Spencer asked if we are just approving the $30,000 or the wage structure. Mr. Byron indicated the Budget Committee is just recommending the $30,000 and not the wage structure. So that was from last year. The Budget Committee was under the impression that it was a single one-time vote, and that did not necessarily mean the Budget Committee would be supporting future years. The other piece of data that came up in the discussion is the actual warrant article from last year. And it does state at the end of the warrant article, it is estimated that implementing the plan will take 3 years. And it's very tiny, so apologize. So that data did come up during the discussion, and the Budget Committee looked at that information and felt that last year the support was a one-time support and did not necessarily indicate it was going to continue to support that. So that was the rationale of the decision by the Budget Committee.
Further discussion on Article 6, on the proposed amendment to Article 6? Okay, we have 5 signatures requesting a ballot vote on this amendment. So I'd ask the constituents here to pull out number 8. 8. Number 8, it's in the middle right of your page, give or take. You might write down, if you can, Article 6. You'd like to indicate whether you are in favor of this adjustment to the warrant article to add $30,000 to the written article, making the total $5,425,953. A yes vote would indicate support of the proposed amendment. A no vote would indicate that you don't support it. And then can I have my ballot box guys come up and maybe go from front to back, please? To Ralph. Yeah, you're gonna box it here. Nice basket you got there. Good. I know. That's cool. If anyone needs a pen or a pencil, let me know. Because somebody might have said. That's why you don't do things. Now, I'm led to believe that we can't talk about anything else until this budget is finished, right?
So the council's done?
Say again?
So they finished the council?
They're outside count.
How about the weather?
So,
Anybody have any words of encouragement?
any words of encouragement or, no? Any good jokes? If this wasn't the budget, we could go on to something else. You can talk anything after. I don't think you're gonna have to. You can talk about anything. Okay, we're going to stay on this topic until we finish the count. Presume everyone's had an opportunity to vote if they chose to vote. Everyone heard the birds chirping this morning? Those are springtime birds. That's right. It's almost boat season. I know, that's what I mean, I can't wait. Here we go. Here she comes. Drum roll. Okay, we have a count on the proposed amendment to add $30,000 to the budget to bring it to $5,425,953. We have a yes count of 41 and a no count of 10. So we now have an amended Article 6. Do we have further discussion on amended Article 6? None. So you'll find the ballot, you'll find the warrant on the ballot as amended. Thank you. So now we're off to Article 7. Police contract. To see if the town will vote to approve the cost items for wage and related costs that have been included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the town of Litchfield and Council 93 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, which provides for the following increases in wages and benefits at the current staffing level, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $18,329 for the current fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salary and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. Estimated 2016 tax rate impact is 2 cents. 2016 was 18,329, 2017 was 14,623 estimated, and 2018 is 12,659 estimated. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 4-1 and recommended by the Budget Committee 8-0. Mr. Lemire to speak to the article.
Thank you. Good morning. This article asks for approval of a 3-year contract between the town and its police officers and dispatchers. Negotiations began in mid-summer and included representatives of the police union, the former town administrator Jason Hope, Chief Joseph O'Brien, and myself representing the Board of Selectmen. The negotiations were conducted according to New Hampshire RSA 273A and were concluded with a tentative agreement by early September. After some adjustments agreed to by both parties, the final agreement was ratified in November. What the next screen shows is some of the highlights of the changes to the existing contract. The contract period runs for 3 years, from April this year to March 31st of 2019. Wage increases year 1, 0.5% this April and 0.5% in July. Year 2 and 3, 2% each year. The retirement 457 plan increases the match by $1,000, but on the condition that that match comes from the employee, the special detail fund. And if the funds aren't available, the match is not appropriated. There'd be no town funds appropriated for that. Holiday pay, the holiday shifts work as overtime will be paid at double time instead of time and a half. Uniform allowance, they agreed to a $250 reduction in uniform allowance for dispatchers. The detail rate, after a 4-hour minimum, the detail rate will be billed in 1-hour increments after the first 15 minutes. The union agreed to basically a give back to the town health insurance point of service rate adjustment. Right now, the town contributes, if the union wants to go to a point of service plan, the town does pay up for the employee, pay the difference in that plan. Year 2, they agreed that the town will only pay 50% buy up from the HMO. And in year 3, the employee will be paying the 100%. The town will no longer pay for that. The Cadillac tax language, they agreed to talk about that when and if the town, they agreed to at least discuss the fact that the town will be held harmless in the fact that the penalties for, or the Cadillac tax would be imposed under the Affordable Care Act. But I believe as of late last year that probably is going to be a non-issue at this point in this contract. I would like to conclude by telling you that the negotiations were professional, courteous, and content-focused. The union presented their proposals in a well-structured and detailed manner. The town countered with their responses, and caucuses were held in an attempt to reach common ground, and this resulting in an agreement in a very short amount of time. Thank you.
Further discussion on Article 7? Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Article 8, Firefighter Paramedic Training. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $37,600 for expenses associated with training one full-time firefighter as a paramedic. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. This will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7, Section 6, and will not lapse until training is completed by December 31st, 2019, whichever is sooner. Estimated 2016 tax rate impact is $0. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 401, recommended by the Budget Committee 810. Chief Fretzel.
Good morning. Earlier this year, right after the first of the year, our full-time firefighter paramedic resigned to take a position with another organization. This article, we're in the process of filling that position. This article would fund the training for the paramedic, similar to what the town did in 2009, should that individual hired not currently be a paramedic. The paramedic program is a 16-month program. It runs 1 day a week in the classroom. So the funding is $12,000 for the tuition, insurances, and basically the costs associated with the program. and then $26,600 to backfill that firefighter's position. While they're at class, we would still need to have a second firefighter on duty, as well as some minimal amount of overtime due to the clinical requirements of the program would require the firefighter to work outside of normally scheduled hours for part of the clinical. So the overtime and backfill costs are $26,600, which brings us to the total of $38,600. Going too far. Questions?
Further discussion on Article 8? Mr. Reed?
Phil Reed, Forest Lane. First of all, Chief, thank you for the great job your department does for us. I gather from what I heard in your conversation that we're not ruling out the possibility of hiring a trained paramedic.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. If we do hire an individual who is already certified as our paramedic, then this funding wouldn't be necessary. And thank you for your support.
Further discussion, Article 8. Mr. Byron, are you walking to the microphone? It appears so.
I want to make sure partly to Mr. Reed's question about the funding for this warrant article. You should be aware that this is coming, this sum is coming from unreserved fund balance. The idea of that is if the chief is able to find a paramedic and hire them outright, because this money is an unrestricted fund balance, it will just simply stay where it is. So there's no taxes that people are going to have to pay in order to do this. I want to make sure it's clear that what will happen is if the chief finds somebody, the money just stays where it is. It doesn't get moved. There's no tax increase, and everything goes on from there.
Further discussion, Article 8? Yes, sir.
If I could just clarify, it's 37.6 as you see behind me. The next slide has a typographical error.
You answered my question, Chief.
There you go. Further discussion, Article 8. Any who want to ask questions? Okay, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Thank you. Article 9, second year of town non-union wage plan implementation. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to fund salary adjustments to bring town employee salaries in line with the non-union employee wage plan as approved by the Board of Selectmen in 2013. This article represents the second year of the three-year implementation plan. Estimated 2016 tax rate is 3 cents, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, not recommended by the Budget Committee 3-5. Mr. Perry.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, in light of what happened with Article 6, I would like to make amendment to the warrant article number 9 to read, to see if the town will vote to endorse the second year of a three-year salary adjustment implementation plan to bring town employees' salaries in line with the non-union employee wage plan as approved by the Board of Selectmen in 2013.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have further discussion on the proposed amendment? We, again, have a request for a secret ballot for this amendment. I'd like to use number 1. So please remove ballot number 1. Check yes if you agree, if you would like to support the proposed amendment, and check no if you want to not support the proposed amendment. Maybe if you can, write down Article 1 as a note on that. Well, hey, it's ballot number 1, isn't it? And then once again, the ballot clerks or the ballot box guys will come around and pick up those ballots from you. Yeah, sorry. So it is Article 9. We're using slip number 1 on the yellow sheet. Okay. Everybody's voting and submitting their vote, their number one slip. Okay, okay. He's coming. Okay, everybody. No, not yet. I keep mine. No, I keep mine to the end. Go ahead. I'm all set. I'm good. I'm good. Okay, everybody has submitted their slip number one, yellow slip number one, into a box. And Patricia will count them. I don't know. I don't think so. Okay, while this is being counted, I'm going to proceed, if you don't mind. Any objections to proceeding to the next article? Yeah? Okay, so we're going to leave Article 9 open until we have a count. We're going to move on to Article 10, first year of library non-union wage plan implementation. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $14,819 to fund salary adjustments to bring library employee salaries in line with the non-union employee wage plan as approved by the Library Board of Trustees in 2015. This article represents the first year of a 3-year implementation plan, estimated 2016 tax rate of 2 cents, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500, not recommended by the Budget Committee, vote 2-6. We have Lynn Clifford and Peggy Drew to talk about the article.
So we'd like to make an amendment.
Okay.
So to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,648 to fund salary adjustments to bring library employee salaries in line with the non-union employee wage plan as approved by the Library Board of Trustees in 2015. This article represents the first year of a 3-year implementation plan, estimated 2016 tax rate impact 1 cent.
So you are requesting to reduce the total amount on this article.
Yes.
Do we have a second? Further discussion on the proposed amendment? Okay, we have a proposed amendment. Any further discussion on the proposed amendment? Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as amended. Oh, yeah, I guess we do. Okay, so no further discussion of the amendment. We're all in favor of adjusting Article 10 to reduce dollars from 14, I've lost my page already.
14,819.
To 10,648. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Like we knew that, right? Okay. Any further discussion on the amended article? Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as amended. Thank you. Thank you, Phil.
And we just have a couple of comments to make on the plan itself as amended. We would like to just point a couple of facts out. One, I think, is probably a little-known fact that the library employees are not technically employees of the town. They're actually employed by the Library Board of Trustees. So when the first year of wage adjustments went through for town employees last year, the library employees were not included in that plan. So I just want to make sure that that is clear to folks. So what we're doing is we're a year behind the non-union town employees, and so we're trying to get the same wage adjustments in for the library. Let's see, a couple of other points. There's been no cost of living increase since 2010 for the library employees, and several employees, because of their longevity, have not seen any increase in their wages over some or all of the period since 2010. And we have 7 employees at the library. The 3-year anticipated cost for this transition is approximately $30,000, so we're taking a third of that this year. We're proposing an equal distribution over 3 years for all of the employees, and the estimated tax impact, as we said, was 1 cent, so for a $300,000 home, that is approximately $3.
Further discussion on the amended Article 10? None. You'll find it on the ballot as amended. Thank you. We have a count on Article 9. So we have an amendment to Article 9 to see if the town will vote to endorse the second year of 3-year salary adjustment implementation plan to bring town employee salaries in line with the non-union employee wage plan as approved by the Board of Selectmen in 2013. We have yes votes 47, no votes 3. So Article 9 is amended. Further discussion on the amended Article 9? None. You'll find it on the ballot as amended. Okay, we've talked about Article 10. Article 11, Town Earned Time Accrual Expendable Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $60,000 to be placed in the Earned Time Accrual Expendable Trust Fund as previously established. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. Estimated 2016 tax rate impact is $0. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0-0, not recommended by the Budget Committee 4-4-0. Mr. Brown, to speak to the article.
Okay, thank you. This fund was established in 2014. The purpose of the fund was to pay for costs incurred for earned time that's been earned by our employees when they separate from employment, retire, or sell back time at the end of the year. Unfortunately, last year there were no funds that were raised for the fund, and it left a balance of $682 at the end of this year. According to our last completed financial statements, the total unfunded liability to the town is about $163,000. That number represents basically if the town were to go bankrupt or stop government, that would be the total cost that we would owe all of our employees. Annually, for the last couple of years, we've incurred expenses in 2014, the amount of $27,970, and in 15, we had $39,526. We had quite a bit of activity in 2015. I think we had about 5 employees either retire or leave on a voluntary basis, seeking employment elsewhere. Looking at our total liability for the ensuing year, according to our employee census, we have about 5 employees that could retire at any given time. And that cost could be as much as $175,000. Now, I think we all know that we're probably not going to have 5 employees retire this year, but it's not unusual to have 1 to 2 employees leave on an annual basis. And we know that, we incur about $20,000, $30,000 a year just for employees that sell back their earned time. So the fund balance at $682 will not cover the cost for 2016. We have union contracts that allow those employees to sell back time, and our personnel policy allows employees to sell back time. And obviously, if anyone leaves, they're entitled to be compensated for their time. And there's no funding available in our operating budget in 2016 to cover these costs. So that's why you see the article today before you asking for $60,000 to bring this fund back to a fairly healthy balance. It's being proposed to come from the unassigned fund balance, so there is no tax impact.
Further discussion on Article 11.
Phil Reed, Forest Lane. I'd be curious to know what the rationale was of the Budget Committee for the 4 negative votes on this.
Mrs. Couture, can you help us?
In rereading the minutes from the discussion, it appears that one of the concerns was, do our employees have to give advance notice if they're going to be retiring? And there was a concern by supporting this, we're enabling people to retire on a moment's notice without any advance notice. And I think any details beyond that, I think the individuals will have to speak to that themselves.
Do we have any other input from the Budget Committee?
I voted against this for the reasons Cindy cited. 26, if we had a policy on the town side that's similar to the school side, then employees would have to notify the town prior to the budget development that they plan to retire in the coming year. In which case, then, we could have budgeted for this amount. Instead, we're providing a fund for anybody can retire whenever. So, in order to be prudent in our planning for next year's financial impacts, it would be beneficial to know how many people actually intend to retire. And it was my feeling, in particular, that by continuing to fund it in this manner, we're continuing to allow a policy that really should be changed. I can't change policy, but I don't have to support funding current policy. So that was my opinion. My opinion is, had we had a policy in place that enables the town to know in advance who's planning to retire within the next year, then we can budget appropriately, instead of needing a fund to cover unanticipated expenses, which really shouldn't be unanticipated because we should be given notice. Thanks.
Did we have, I see a stirring on the selectmen here. Yeah, sure, Trish, yeah.
I just want to make sure, we heard a lot about folks retiring, and just want to reiterate that a part of the cost used for this fund is the annual buyback of employees' earned time. So again, our non-union and union employees are able to sell back earned time at the end of the year. I believe there's a cap that they can sell back no more than 20 hours each. Also, as far as school employees, I'm not 100% sure with this, but it's always been my understanding that school employees are contracted, and they sign a contract on an annual basis. So our employees are not contracted on an annual basis. They're just employed at will. So I think that might be the difference in how the school is allowed to give that 1-year advance notice.
Mr. Byron, Mr. Lemire.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think it's unrealistic to expect that our employees, a year ahead of time, notify the employer that they're going to retire. Not only that, this has to account for situations that are unexpected. If an employee gets injured, gets sick, and has to retire, or is deceased, God forbid, the money to pay for all of the benefits that are not exclusive of retirement the other benefits that are paid out to the family or to the employee have to be included in there. This is not sustained in the budget. Our budget this year was so close, we were lucky to barely plow the roads this year. If a situation happens that, an employee unexpectedly needs to retire and, carries a $40,000 payroll, where are we going to get that money? Also, Mr. Moderator, I questioned the fact that on the warrant, it says not recommended by the Budget Committee 4-4. That, I believe, is incorrect. That should be submitted with no recommendation on a tie vote like that.
Noted. I'm not sure I can change that, but
I think it's up to the selectmen whether to do it. I'm just saying, I think you could equally say recommended by the Budget Committee.
Yeah. So it's neither recommended nor recommended by the Budget Committee because they voted 4-4.
Correct. That's what I would recommend.
Interesting. How would you represent that on the ballot so that it says that? Because this says not recommended by the Budget Committee.
Well, neither recommended nor recommended by the Budget
No. I'm suggesting, I agree with you, but when this gets printed on the ballot, it's going to appear as if it's not recommended by the Budget Committee. The voter is going to say, oh, they're not going to.
Unless it's changed.
Exactly. So what do the selectmen want to do with that?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the language gets changed to neither recommended nor not recommended by the Budget Committee.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstained? Change?
So we will, do we amend the article to say that?
Well, and I think it's a determination as by the selectmen and
Right.
not by the meeting.
Okay.
Can I ask how that plays into state law? I mean, is what just happened legal? That's the only question I have. Might be, might not be.
That's the attorney.
That's the town council.
We have a meeting, we're in a meeting.
Would you like me to answer that?
Yeah, sure. Come up to the microphone, please.
It's an RSA.
Sir, please up to the microphone if you could. Thanks.
The state law doesn't explicitly address this situation, and typically a budget committee will have an odd number of people, so this doesn't happen. However, it's RSA 32.5, Roman numeral 5A, simply says the article shall contain a notation of whether or not that appropriation is recommended by the governing body, and if there is a budget committee, a notation of whether or not it is recommended by the budget committee. So in my view, if there was a 4-4 vote, in my view, the most accurate statement as to what the budget committee did is to say it was neither recommended nor not recommended, 4-4.
Mr. Bohm.
Thank you. This is a parliamentary issue. And every place I've been, a tie vote is a no vote. I mean, either it's yes. If it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. So it's a no.
Is there discussion on this issue?
We're getting there. Ma'am?
Pat Spencer, 9 Cranberry Lane. Can I just ask what earned time is? I mean, for 5 people at $175,000, that's $35,000. Is that vacation? Is it, I mean, in private business, you don't usually have that kind of refund when you retire.
So the town used to have a traditional vacation and sick time policy. So employees would earn vacation time and they would earn sick time. In the last couple of years, the town changed and they combined all of that to earn time. And earned time represents today the vacation time and the sick time they used to earn, and I believe actually some of the floating holidays that they had.
Is there any limit to it, or does it go on for years?
No, there's caps. So we have caps in our union contracts, and we have caps for our non-union employees. So, and we also have minimum usage requirements. So based on years of service, employees earn a certain rate. Based on that year of service, they have certain caps and minimum usage. So for the non-union employees, I believe the cap is 320 hours, and our police is 660.
Okay, thank you.
Chris Pascucci, 12 Colonial Drive. As many times I speak again, it's going to be about process. There's no doubt that the Board of Selectmen, they yield pretty much all the power, and they have the right to do, and legal right to do many of these things, especially what they just did with that vote. But, there is a balance in this town. There is a budget committee that was put into this town, and the budget committee also has a say. But it seems like if on certain issues, if the Board of Selectmen doesn't like the decision, that they choose to either do whatever they have to do to change it or erase it. I mean, we just went through something with the whole process with the non-union raises. It went through the whole process with the budget committee, with the townsfolk, with Warrant last year. But they weren't happy with the way the process went. They were not happy with the way the budget committee voted. So they were able to get it into the budget, which is fine because this is legal and the way it could be done. But right now, they're not happy with the vote. It doesn't read right in their mind. It's 4-4. So, the budget committee's opinion might carry too much weight, which is what they'd prefer not to have. So they just made a vote in a couple seconds to erase it. I'm shocked that the budget committee is not speaking to that, because there was a long discussion about it, a lot of discussion about it. We came to a legal vote. It happened to be tie. And now they just want to kind of erase it from the ballot. Actually, I was for this. I voted in favor of it, me as a budget committee member. But I just think what happened was wrong, because it is correct when something is 4-4, it means not recommended by way of tie. And that is the way it should read, not recommended because of a tie. It shouldn't be erased. It's not right.
Further discussion? Mr. Perry?
Just as a point of record, it was not erased. It was made to say neither recommended nor not recommended. So, as Mr. Pascucci has just stated, we did do the process to make sure that it was correct.
Further discussion on the Article 11, sir.
Shouldn't that posting, regardless of the verbiage, still show the 4-4 vote of the Budget Committee?
Correct.
That's not being taken off of there, correct?
Correct. No.
Fine, thank you.
Captain.
Hi, Doug Nickel, 44 Robin Ave. I'm your other full-time firefighter. I have a question for Mr. Brown. If there's $682 in the fund balance, we just had a paramedic that left, and he was paid $5,000. Where does that $5,000 come from?
That's a very good question, and this is what we experienced last year in our 2015 budget, because we only had a balance in the earned time fund of just over $20,000. So unfortunately, when we had about 5 employees leave, some of the earned time that was owed to the employees, we had to take it out of the operating budget. And we were able to do that because it takes some time when the employee leaves to recruit and hire a new replacement. So in the case with the paramedic who's just left in 2016, we've charged this cost against, the cost will be charged against the operating budget if funding's not obtained through this warrant article. So as of right now, we've charged it against the Earned Time Trust Fund, but we'll have to reverse that entry if funding's not available, made available through town meeting, and it will come out of the operating budget of the fire department.
Do we have further discussion on Article 11? We do.
Hi, I just wanted to clarify. So, in a situation where a paramedic leaves this billing this year, and if we had a policy similar to the schools, that would be, instead of receiving their funding this year, it would be put into next year's budget. So it just provides the school with an opportunity, or in this case, it would provide the town with the opportunity to use actual numbers instead of having a fund here. So it wouldn't discourage people. Obviously, things happen, and people need to retire if they get injured or other things happen, life happens. But all it would do would be, it would prevent them from getting paid out this year. And instead, it would be included in the following year's budget, so it could be budgeted. Thank you.
It sounds like we have a policy adjustment discussion outside of this amendment, right?
Explaining my position.
Yeah, understood. Sir?
Mr. Moderator, in regards to that last comment, I would seek legal counsel on the ability of the town to defer paying an employee their, any of those wages for almost a year.
Yeah, but
I don't believe that's
not pertinent to this article. That's an example of actual fact that's not really for this body to be discussing, right?
Well, I just want to make sure that was clarified. We can't do that
Yep.
legally.
Okay. Sir?
Ray Peoples. One of the things that, as you work through this stuff and being a member of the town on several different committees over the year, you see something like this come before you, and I voted no on this. And the reason I voted no is simply by establishing these funds, we're enabling something that actually creates the liabilities all the time. In this case, earned time. If you work in the public sector employee, I have worked for a very generous company. I get 4 weeks vacation. I get 5 sick days. The sick days are stated in our policy as days that are to be used if you are sick and cannot come to work. They're not days that you can add up and get an extra week's pay at the end of the year or take off because you want to have a day in the sun. We're creating policies here that have to create funds like this because we're allowing them to save them up like they were paychecks and put them away and spend them at some future date. I voted no because I think we need to revisit some of these policies. They're not concurrent with life in 2016, and they're causing unfunded liabilities in 1 year in a small town like this. Could be $175,000 without budget funding. I just think that's wrong and not prudent to the people.
Further discussion on Article 11. Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Article 12, Library Earned Time Accrual Expendable Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to discontinue the library's Vacation Accrual Expendable Trust Fund created in 2012 and return the balance of such fund to the town's general fund. The balance of this fund as of December 31st, 2015 is $7,374, and further, to see if the town will vote to establish the Earned Time Accrual Expendable Trust Fund under the provisions of RSA 31:19A for the purpose of annually accounting for the cost of earned but unused vacation time so that the expenses associated with employee resignation, retirements, and buyouts of accrued earned time do not impact the current year budget, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $7,374 to put in the fund, with this amount to come from the unexpended fund balance as of December 31st, 2015. And to further appoint the Library Board of Trustees to serve as agents to expend that from that fund. This would have a net cost to 2016 general taxation of $0. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500 and recommended by the Budget Committee 800. Discussion on Article 12.
Just a couple of comments about this one. This one I hope would be pretty straightforward. This is really what we're calling a housekeeping warrant article. As the town moved to an earned time system, the library has too. So we're no longer using vacation, personal, and sick hours. We're using the earned time method. So it's really just a terminology change to the fund. There's no tax impact.
Thank you. Discussion on Article 12? Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. We are exactly halfway through our ballot lists, our article list. Does anyone have anything they'd like to offer the town? I'd like to open the mics up for 5 minutes if anyone would like to offer a thanks or an attaboy or a whatever. Nothing. Okay, we'll keep on going. Article 13, Human Services and Health Agencies. Human Services and Health Agencies. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,167 to support the requests of human services and health agencies, including Big Brother, Big Sister, Home Health and Hospice Care, St. Joseph's Community Services, Meals on Wheels, Bridges, Community Council of Nashua, court-appointed special advocates, and American Red Cross. Estimated 2016 tax rate is 2 cents. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. This is recommended by the Budget Committee 423. Mr. Byron to speak to the article.
Surprise.
You were supposed to be Mr. Brunel.
Okay. In the past, the Board of Selectmen, let me begin on a different track. There are quite a few health agencies being agencies in the surrounding area who provide services to towns. For example, people such as Big Brothers Big Sisters, Red Cross, Bridges, which handles all types of different mental health as well as crisis situations, Meals on Wheels, that type of thing. And they come into town and they provide services. They regularly ask the Board of Selectmen for donations. And in the past, the Board of Selectmen had placed this into the budget. The idea being that we would provide some level of funding. In the past, the Board of Selectmen had determined that we would not provide full funding to their requests, but instead that what we would do is provide a portion of what they requested. Several years ago, or 2 years ago, it was a decision of the Board of Selectmen to move this instead to a warrant article. And the idea was you people here, the citizens of Litchfield, at the deliberative session, would have an opportunity to voice your opinion one way or the other as to whether you wanted to supply these organizations with their requests. As you see on the screen behind me, these are the fundings that have been requested by these organizations. We have not changed them. We've not added to them. We've not subtracted from them. They are appearing here as they were requested in letters that were sent to the Board of Selectmen. It's up to you, to the citizens of Litchfield, as to whether you want to provide this or not, change the amount, whatever you want to do. You have that option now at deliberative session. Once this article goes away, you will not have that option again. It will be appearing next year in some form, either in the budget or on a separate warrant article. So it's open to your decision as to what you would like to do.
Further discussion, Article 13. Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Article 14, Building Systems Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to be placed in the Building Systems Trust Fund as previously established. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. Estimated 2016 tax rate is $0. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500 and recommended by the Budget Committee 800. Mr. Brown.
Okay. Thank you. This fund was established in 2013. It currently has a balance of $20,135. The purpose of the fund was to cover unanticipated building repairs. These would be major repairs such as septic systems, roofs, heating and cooling equipment, structural related issues. I guess this article is here before you this year because when I started working back in September, one of the first things I did was tour all of the facilities. And although the facilities have been well maintained, they're well kept, everyone's been working hard, I did notice that we do have an aging, our buildings are old, and my primary concern was the heating and cooling systems that I saw at the highway garage, the recycling facility. I know when I was at the library, we were looking at the system, and we made a few jokes about how it keeps running. And these systems can cost a lot of money without much notice. As you all know, we all own homes, and when the hot water heater goes or the furnace stops working, you don't really get much notice, even though you faithfully have your furnace cleaned every year. It still can break down without any notice. I felt that the $20,000 that was in the fund doesn't represent the true cost of what we could be faced with in any given year. And so that's why this is before you to add an additional $30,000 to the fund. And this would come from the unassigned fund balance. It would be no tax impact.
Further discussion, Article 14. Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Fire station, Article 15, fire station exhaust removal system, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 for the purpose of purchasing a vehicle exhaust removal system for the fire station. Estimated 2016 tax rate of 6 cents. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 401. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 800. Chief, to speak to the article.
Good morning again. One of the biggest concerns in the fire service over the last year to 2 years is the increase in cancer rates among firefighters. Most of it is attributed to the changes in the materials that are in our homes today. We've gone from natural type fibers to synthetics and so forth. The other one is the identification of diesel exhaust, diesel fumes to be a known carcinogen. Currently, we have 5 pieces of apparatus in the fire station. They're all started on a regular, I would even say daily basis for one reason or another. And we have no way to extract the exhaust that comes from those trucks when they're started for a call, for maintenance, for daily checks. This warrant article would provide for what's called a source capture system. As you can see in the diagram behind me, hoses are attached to the exhaust pipe or the tailpipe of the fire apparatus and then extracted to the outside of the building so that the exhaust fumes are not emitted directly into the fire station.
Discussion, Article 15. Yes, sir.
John Latcher, 10 Miguel Wayne Drive, Litchfield, New Hampshire. I was pretty upset when I heard the chief talk at the Board of Selectmen meeting about this issue. I thought we already had this issue addressed. Chief, can this removal system be placed in a different area, like if there's ever a new fire station or anything like that? Can it be moved, most of the equipment? Or?
Yes, the systems that we've looked at, and again, we would go out to bid once the article was approved, but all the systems would be able to be either added, modified, added to, relocated, should we do some type of modification or replacement of the fire station.
Thank you.
Further discussion, Article 15? Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Article 16, 2016 road improvement projects, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $200,000 for the purpose of road improvement projects. It is anticipated that these funds will be used toward the cost of repairs to Cutler Road, Pinecrest Road, and other roads as necessary. Estimated 2016 tax rate impact of 23 cents. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500, and recommended by the Budget Committee, 800. Mr. Perry.
Hello again. So this warrant article is based, I believe this is the 3rd year running we've done this one now. It's $200,000. What we're trying to do is we're trying to continue to improve the roadway system in town. Our highway department and Jack has done a fantastic job of keeping up with our roads, coming up with a plan so that we can continue to move forward and have less bad roads. So with that, this fund would maintain approximately 77 miles of roads. The pavement management program scores. We have 61% of all our roads in town are rated in good condition. We have 13% that are rated in fair condition. We have 26% that are rated in poor condition. The routine surface treatment is the most cost-effective way to maintain the pavement, so that way they're staying ahead of it will obviously keep us in a better position. We have approximately $35.8 million in estimated value of pavement in our town. And the roads are obviously one of our town's most valuable assets. Some of the projects that have been done is the Pinecrest Road reclamation and pavement. That's one of the ones that needs to be done. The Nest and Cake Drive reclamation and event. We have Stark Lane, which has been completed, Blue Jay Way that's been completed. It was a total cost in 2015 of $375,000. The proposed project for this coming year. The funding, if this warrant article is approved, would be approximately $418,000. $200,000 from the special article, $193,000 from highway block grant, and $25,000 from the operating budget. The proposed projects, which we're not, well, actually, no, we are pretty sure that these are the ones that will be done. Cutler Road widening, reclamation and pavement, approximately 2,600 linear feet. It would go from Page Road to Candle Ridge Circle. The actual cost of that would be about $176,000, $177,000. Pinecrest Road, Phase 2, approximately 3,340 linear feet, east from Albuquerque to Moose Hollow Road. The estimated cost, $76,096. And the other proposed project would be Pilgrim Drive, the south side, reclamation and pavement, approximately 2,655 linear feet. That would go from Page Road to just north of 35 Pilgrim Drive. The estimated cost there is $108,273. And the balance of the funding, which would be $56,000, will go towards other smaller projects, change orders, and unanticipated repairs.
Further discussion, Article 16.
John Lack, Elway Drive, Litchfield, New Hampshire. Isn't the cost of payment based on petroleum products, the cost
Yes.
of, which is at an all-time low right now?
Yes.
Have we taken advantage of the situation and maybe added another road or so?
Well, Jack is really good with managing our money when it comes down to the roadway
I know he is,
projects. So with the $56,000 at the end, the reason why there is that allowance at the end is because there's always a patchwork that needs to be done or a significant repair that comes up that we weren't anticipating due to a damaged situation. A lot of times, Jack can usually get something piggybacked because he can get a good deal or work it out so that we get multiple projects done at the same time. I am pretty certain that with Jack, we have the best guy on the job to make sure that these dollars go as far as possible.
I just had one other question. Couldn't we as a town maybe set up a contract with the pavement company, maybe, I'm just saying Continental, for instance, for a 2 or 3 year contract where we can actually lower the costs by getting into a contract with them?
I don't know if they would want to lock into it because of the cost of the pavement is always so volatile.
Right.
But we haven't actually looked into that. I know it was done way in the past, wasn't it? No? Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Further discussion, Article 16.
Robert Croto, 6 Garden Drive. Maybe I missed it in the beginning. Is some of the blocks you were talking about, was that federal money?
Yes, the highway block grant comes from the state. So that's based on rooms and meals? I don't know.
Based on the gasoline tax.
It's based on the gasoline tax. So there's no federal funding.
Thank you.
Further discussion, Article 16.
Phil Reed, I think, and I think Jack can back me up on this, historically, Continental Paving has been very kind to us in negotiations on road repairs.
Oh, yeah, they have. Every time we go out to bid, they usually submit their bids in, and I know that we have used them more times than not.
Further discussion, Article 16. Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Article 17, change purpose of Public Works Expendable Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to amend the Public Works Expendable Trust Fund as shown below with original text shown unchanged, new text shown in bold and deleted, next text shown as crossed out. This fund can be used for payment of solid waste disposal fees in excess of the annual budget appropriation for that purpose, as well as the replacement of capital equipment at the solid waste facility with a value greater than $5,000. In addition, this fund can be used for repair and replacement of vehicles and equipment, payment of snow removal related costs, including but not limited to wages, contracted service fees, and purchase of salt and sand in excess of the annual budget appropriation for these purposes. This would have a net cost to 2016 general taxation of $0. A two-thirds vote is required, and this is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. Mr. Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Hello again. The purpose of this is to expand the purposes that can be used for this already existing expendable trust fund. In the past several years, the citizens of Litchfield had approved an expendable trust fund that covered the issue of snow removal in case we overran our budget, which, as you well imagine, happened last year, as well as modifications or changes that would have to be made, or emergency situations that come up within the recycling center. And one case in point of that was a baler that we had that failed several year or two ago. So what this does is it expands the purposes of that trust fund, and hence that's why it requires a two-thirds vote. It will expand it to include extraordinary repair and a replacement of public works equipment such as plow trucks and spreaders, recycling centers, skid steers, balers, that type of thing. And it clarifies also in the article that the costs associated with the labor as well as contracted services for things like plowing, et cetera, would be covered for being able to be taken from this fund as well in cases where we did have to an extraordinary winter, that type of thing.
Further discussion, Article 17. Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Public Works Expendable Trust Fund Appropriation, Article 18, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 for deposit into the Public Works Expendable Trust Fund as previously established, estimated 2016 tax rate of 3 cents, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500, recommended by the Budget Committee 5-3-0. Mr. Byron.
Thank you again, Mr. Moderator.
You're welcome.
Again, this article really goes with the last article that we just discussed. What this will do is it will increase the size of the expendable trust fund and allow the coverage necessary to include those things like plow trucks, that type of thing. The $20,000 that was originally put into this fund covered a lot of the items that are in the, the Public Works, the recycling center. But because we'll be covering much more equipment, that type of thing, we felt that the additional funds would be needed. The trust fund balance as of the end of 2015 was $20,243.73.
Further discussion, Article 18. Hearing none, you'll find that on the ballot as written. Article 19, Recycling Revolving Fund. To see if the town will vote to establish a revolving fund pursuant to RSA 31:95-H for the purpose of accounting for the cost of collection and disposal of recycling material, purchase of recycling supplies and equipment, and other direct and indirect costs associated with the town's recycling program. The revenue from fees, charges, and other income derived from the town's recycling program will be deposited into the fund, and the money in the fund shall be allowed to accumulate from year to year and shall not be considered part of the town's general fund balance. The town treasurer shall have custody of all monies in the fund and shall pay out the same only upon order of the governing body, and no further approval is required by the legislative body to expend. Such funds may be expended only for the purpose for which the fund was created. Estimated 2016 tax rate of $0, recommended by the Board of Selectmen by 500. Mr. Brown.
Okay, thank you. So I know that we're all excited about the drop in oil prices and the price of the gas pump, but unfortunately for our recycling operation, this has had a negative impact. Consequently, what happens is the drop in price of oil, we find that the manufacturing facilities they find it cheaper to actually make plastic and make steel than to receive the recycled plastic and steel and turn it into material again. So we're seeing that our recycling disposal costs are actually increasing, and they've been increasing over the past few years, but this year obviously it's been a severe impact. One of the things that it's important to point out that a lot of people they're not aware is that recycling is not free. Even though we collect a lot of items like wood that has been painted, electronics, glass, tires, propane tanks, oil, certain light bulbs, they all have a cost that the town pays to dispose of those items. We also have items that we collect revenue on, and those are items like plastic, aluminum, textile, copper, scrap metal, paper, the cardboard. So in the past, we've always used the Northeast Resource Recovery Association, which serves about 400 towns and cities throughout Vermont, New Hampshire, parts of Massachusetts. And by working with them, we're able to gain the best price for the sale of our recyclable goods, and for the items that cost, they're able to get a cheaper return on disposing of those items. The Northeast Resource Recovery Association, they provide, they administer all the paperwork for the recycling facility. They provide quarterly and annual finance reports. So the recycling, if we were able to create this fund, it'd basically be another budgeting tool that we'd use. And what we propose to do is the revenues that we collect for all recycling in town would go into this fund. And all of the expenses that are incurred would come out of the fund as well. So we hope that this fund would become self-supporting and would have no tax impact on the residents. If the fund works the way that we hope it will, then there's the opportunity that the fund will grow a healthy fund balance, and we can start using some of those funds to even help offset some of the recycling expenses to the program, such as repairing, the skid steer, purchasing certain equipment and materials, making some improvements to our facility. But I think that's going to be a few years down the road before the fund would have a healthy balance to be able to do that stuff. For right now, we just want to really collect all the revenues and pay for the disposal costs through the fund. This fund is nothing any different than funds that we have in town right now. It's very similar. It operates the same as the Police Special Detail Fund, the Ambulance Fund, and the Recreation Fund. Again, all those funds, they collect revenues from different sources, and the expenses are paid out of the fund.
Further discussion, Article 19. Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Article 20, Northeast Energy Direct Gas Pipeline. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,597 to be expended at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen in opposition to the proposed Northeast Energy Direct high-pressure gas pipeline and/or to minimize the impact thereof on the land and people of the town, including but not limited to expenditures for legal representation and consultants, land use planning and consultation, public information purposes, administrative and court filing fees, participation in multi-town coalitions, and any and all other expenses reasonably related to opposing said pipeline project and/or mitigating the effects thereof. This will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7, Section 6, and will not lapse until December 31st, 2020. Estimated 2016 tax rate is 2 cents. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. It's not recommended by the Budget Committee 4-4. Mr. Brown.
Okay. I'm sure you're all aware of the proposed gas pipeline that's scheduled to be constructed through southern New Hampshire. It would enter the state in Winchester, New Hampshire, and make its way to Pelham, New Hampshire, where it would exit and head down to Dracut, Massachusetts. There are about 19 New Hampshire municipalities that will be impacted by the construction of this pipeline. The pipeline will have a capacity of 1.3 billion cubic feet per day. Here in Litchfield, it's proposed to run approximately 2.68 miles through the town of Litchfield. This is through the one of our PSNH electric corridors. There'll be about 100 homes that will be within 500 feet of the proposed pipeline. And this area is the streets that are impacted: Brickyard, Cummings, Mockingbird, Nessinkeg, Wren, and Nacomo. So far right now, as we understand the estimated project schedule, the project right now has been officially filed with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Everyone refers to that as FERC. And we expect that FERC will make a decision sometime at the end of 2016. Sometime in early 2016, the state has its own review process, and that's known as the New Hampshire Site Evaluation Committee. There has not been any plans filed with them as of this date, but we do anticipate that will be happening soon. If the project's approved, according to Kinder Morgan, the company that's proposing to build the pipeline, construction would start in January 2017, and service would begin in November 2018. I'm not sure if you can see this map, but you have the handouts. Again, this is giving you the location of where the proposed pipeline would come through the town. Again, it looks like it's just north of Wilson Farm, and then runs through the streets that we had mentioned, entering into the town of Litchfield. So this article is seeking to appropriate funds for our continued participation in the New Hampshire Municipal Pipeline Coalition. The coalition, organized in January 2015, it consists of 13 New Hampshire towns that are impacted by the project. The whole purpose was for us to share information, resources, and primarily to share legal expenses and costs as we continue to investigate what the impacts would be on our town and look out for our general health and welfare of our community and residents. The committee has met with many federal and state representatives. We've met with New Hampshire representatives, and we've met with experts from other private companies, as well as Kinder Morgan representatives. We've hired legal counsel from Boston, Massachusetts, and legal counsel is constantly monitoring the permitting process. They've prepared a motion to intervene and protest on behalf of the town of Litchfield and on behalf of the entire coalition. The cost is estimated to be about $300,000. Again, this is an estimate. We don't know how long the permitting process how long it will take, if there'll be delays, if there's new information that's submitted. But I guess from their experience, normal permitting process would cost about $300,000. It's been calculated that Litchfield's share of this cost would be $27,297, of which we have $11,700 set aside, the Board of Selectmen encumbered funds for this purpose, which leaves the balance of $15,597 to be raised for us to continue to participate in this effort.
Further discussion on Article 20. Mr. Lemire.
Mr. Moderator and attendees, just informational, after conferring with council, due to the fact that this was another 4-4 vote by the Budget Committee, the Board of Selectmen is going to take a vote afterwards to put the neutral recommendation language in, as we did in the article before.
Further discussion on Article 20. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to explain the Budget Committee's rationale for the 4-4 vote, or the process that we use when we vote to recommend or not recommend. The motion is always to recommend whatever warrant article. A vote is taken. The community has come to expect that the first number is how many people on the Budget Committee are in support of the warrant article. The second number is how many people on the Budget Committee are in opposition to the warrant article, and then the last number is how many have chosen to abstain. So that works very well when it's easy and there's a 3-5 vote, a 4-6 vote, whatever the number is, that's very easy. On a tie vote, again, the motion is to recommend. So when there's a tie vote, technically the motion fails. So there could be a second motion to not recommend, in which case one would expect that's probably going to be a tie vote as well. And does that mean then the Budget Committee supports the warrant article because of a tie vote? So I do believe, and as the chair, I have the ability to determine what the vote means of the Budget Committee. I do believe that a 4-4 vote, it is correct to say that there is no recommendation by the Budget Committee. It is neither recommended nor not recommended. In terms of this tie vote, the people who voted against this warrant article were concerned that this should be separated into two different warrant articles. One, does the community support the selectmen in opposing the pipeline? And then a second warrant article, then attaching the dollars to that. So that was the reason for the split vote.
Further discussion, Article 20?
John Latcher, 10 McElwain Drive, Litchfield, New Hampshire. I was just wondering if Mr. Byron, as one of our state representatives, can give us sort of a brief idea of what the feeling is up in Concord as far as our elected officials is concerned about this pipeline. Thank you.
I'm not sure whether this is really...
I know. Give it a minute or two, if you could.
So, as I understood, and I had difficulty hearing the question, he wants to know what's happening in Concord.
General feeling about the article, about the pipeline in Concord.
There's no information I can really provide you on that, simply because there has been no votes taken on it. There are several bills that are out there. I do know that I'm a co-sponsor on, I think, 4 bills that would oppose the pipeline. The general feeling of the reps, to my knowledge, of the areas where that pipeline goes through are against the pipeline. But whether that will pass or not, it's hard to say, because there are some representatives I hear quite clearly saying that they're in favor of the additional energy coming into the state, and hopefully they feel that it will decrease electrical costs. So Mr. Boehm's also, Representative Boehm is also, he can maybe contribute to this as well.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Ralph Boehm. I'm also up there. One of the big issues is those other towns that are against it have had votes by the people, so I think probably there should have been a warrant article. Also, the big issue in Concord is eminent domain. In other words, no way that Kinder Morgan or any other utility can take your property without your permission to sell it to them. In other words, it is not eminent domain, because there's no eminent domain for a private company to take your property for a private use, and this is equal to private use. And we passed constitutional amendment some years ago to state that after the Judge Souter's thing about, which is going all over the country. But so our Constitution says, no, it's not eminent domain for a private company. So that's a big issue with the pipeline right now. And also, like I said, other towns have actually had a vote of the people. So their representatives are saying, no, you can't, because their people said no. I think that's something we should have probably done in this town, but we haven't.
I will tell you that there is one bill that's being debated up there which basically says that if you, Kinder Morgan, take part of somebody's parcel or property to cut across it, then they will have to buy the whole property, not just pay for that portion that they're utilizing. So that'll be an interesting debate.
Further discussion, questions on Article 20?
Susan Seabrook, 33 James Way. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place or time to ask this question, but you said that they would have to purchase the whole property. Does that mean that that property that occupant needs to be displaced? And if it's not the right venue, you just let me know.
It's really a bill in front of the legislature, and it's, I'm sure, going through amendment. It's been going through committee hearings and all types of stuff. So it'll change, but the intention would be that they would be able to have their whole property purchased. Now, I don't know if that's at the discretion of the property owner. I haven't gone through the bill because it's in different committees, or whether that is de facto that they would be displaced. I believe it's at the discretion of the property owner, so if they feel their property value is decreasing because they have a pipeline in their backyard, they may be able to.
And then one more follow-up question, if I might. This is a very volatile issue in our town, and I'm wondering why we don't have a separate warrant article like other towns have had, either saying that, what did that gentleman say, that Ralph Bohm said, other towns have had a warrant article saying the selectmen support it or oppose it, and then we vote on that as townspeople. Would that have more impact?
It was brought to the discussion at the Board of Selectmen last year for the last year's warrant, and it was a decision by the Board of Selectmen not to go forward with that warrant article. The intention this year, and this was a sly trick, Mr. Brown, to dump this on me, it was a decision this year to put this as a warrant article with the hopes that the citizens will have a chance to vote on this and express their opinion along with this. If I was a betting man or woman, I would probably expect that you'll see something in the Hudson Litchfield News in terms of a letter from the Board of Selectmen suggesting that this is a, quote, referendum as to whether the town would want to take a negative position or a positive position against the pipeline.
Thank you.
There's 2 points to this issue I want to speak with. One is the recommendation, also what Cindy spoke to. We have always had a recommendation of 4-4, meaning not to recommend, by way of tie. It was always in there. So although I disagree a few times from here and there with the Board of Selectmen, I do believe in consistency, so I would hope they would vote to also change that, although I don't believe with the comment that was used to make it neutral. I more believe in also honesty and just saying it's, the Budget Committee's recommendation or not recommendation, some people take seriously, so it's more so a vote to water down the opinion of the Board of Selectmen. As for the actual warrant itself, I also agree that this should have been a warrant without any money attached to it first, just to get the voters' true feeling of this proposal, because it could be different. People could feel strongly that they don't want it going through town, but they could also think spending this money is a waste of money. I voted to not recommend it for no reason about whether I'm for or against the actual gas line. I just think spending the $28,000 or $1,000, whatever it is truly a waste of money. There's so many moving parts here. There's so many other communities that have to vote. The dollar amount is $300,000 to, I guess, legal fees. But if a few of the towns that are impacted this March vote to not spend that money, then the question is, does our share go up? Because the cost to defend it or defeat it is not changing. So is our $28,000 not enough? Is it double now? Or at that point, do we have to pull out? There's a lot of moving parts. And then also, I don't see a chance that any amount of money is going to stop this thing. It's coming anyway. So I just think spending the money on this, although what they're asking to raise is less than what we're spending, we're still spending $28,000 minimum. And I just think that's a huge waste of money.
Further discussion, Article 20.
Erin Mellon, Mason Drive. I have a question for the Budget Committee. If you know that there's only going to be 8 people there to do a vote on something, as you said, could be as volatile as this, can you not postpone that vote? And so we don't have this kind of, it's a yes vote, it's a no vote. Because whether or not you think that you're recommended or not recommended by the Budget Committee holds weight, of course it does. I don't understand how you can have a vote on whether or not it's this or the budget or any of that kind of, the town budget, and only have 8 voters there, or 8 members there.
It's pretty clear to me that there's some back-end processing that has to take place
Right.
between the Budget Committee and the Selectmen, but that doesn't have any bearing on this article.
Well, this article, he just said that he's coming up here and saying that he voted against it, so he's already, as a member of the Budget Committee, telling everybody here that he voted against it because of, and that he doesn't think that anybody has a chance in Haiti to be able to defeat them. So why would you, if anybody sees this, why would you vote for this money? If you already have 2 people at the, from the Budget Committee saying that it's not, that you can't do anything about it. You've already defeated it before we've had a chance to vote on it.
Mr. Chair?
When we take a vote, we hope everybody's there, but life happens, and sometimes not every member can make it. So we take the vote based on who's there.
No, I understand that, but I mean, it's the same as when she had said when we said life happens when someone has to retire. Right?
Yeah, and by a 4-4 vote, again, that gives people the idea that 4 people supported the article, 4 people did not support the article, and I think people can make up their own mind the significance of that.
So why put a recommendation underneath it at all?
And that was my comment earlier. I think the selectmen are correct in saying that is neither a support nor a non-support of the article.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Again, I mean, this discussion is not pertinent to this topic. It's pertinent to every topic that you bring to a warrant article, and it would seem that you're setting precedents here from here on out that says a 4-4 vote means something to the warrant article.
Mm-hmm.
What does a 4-4 vote mean now on either the Budget Committee or the Selectmen when it comes to publishing the warrant article? So let's move on, because
all right,
it's
well, I
not
do
pertinent
have
to this
another
article.
question, though, if that's all right.
If it's pertinent to this article,
It
yes.
is.
Okay.
What would happen if we do not approve this, and we still have to go, where would that money come from for us to go
Good question.
and fight this?
Yep. You mean if the town wants to fight it?
Well, correct.
Right.
Well, I mean, I would assume that everybody in the town would hope that,
You'd hope.
we'd be able to fight it, and that the people that are directly impacted by this wouldn't have to stand alone.
If this funding's not approved, then in our operating budget, we do carry a line item for legal expense. But it's intended that line item is used for just general issues that go on throughout the year. There wouldn't be enough funding available to hire an attorney to represent the town's best interests through this whole permitting process at the federal level and the state level. So I'm not sure.
And that's included in your discussions with the Budget Committee when you're figuring out whether or not to approve this or recommend it, that you know where the other money would come from to, or is it just a black and white? Do you know that whether or not there'd be money in the operating budget to go forth with this?
When a warrant article fails, there's a law called no means no, so if this article were to fail, my understanding is that the selectmen, not only are they using it as a referendum, but even if it wasn't a referendum, they would not be able to spend any money on this item as a failed warrant article.
So with you're not recommended by the Budget Committee, that if something happened and the warrant didn't pass, then it would be left up to the selectmen to try to find money to fight this.
On
they would not be able to.
voting day, when this article is voted on, either it's going to pass or it's going to fail.
Right.
If it passes, the money's there.
If it doesn't
If it
pass.
fails, the money's not there.
Correct.
And the
So
selectmen.
they have to try to find a place if
No.
they want to?
No.
No, they're unable to take money
No,
from.
but if they wanted to go forward and fight this as a town on their own, they would have to come up with money to fight that through the operating budget.
No, if for
Well,
one
that's-
year,
didn't you just say
for 1 year, they would be unable to spend any money on this item.
So
Because
the-
it's called the no means no law.
Okay, now I understand.
Mr. Bohm?
Yes, thank you. This has happened many times over the past where we try to make an agreement with other towns to put in a fair share or a share. Whether or not we put in the money or not, it's still going to be fought. There are those towns that have specifically said no, and that's what those people want. We don't know. But we're talking, what, 10% of, less than 10% of the 300,000? It will still be fought, but Litchfield won't be put into it. A good example, many years ago, the Claremont decision, it kept coming up on the school district for Litchfield to join the Claremont group to fight the school funding. Litchfield has always said no. It was still fought. So the same with this, even if we say no, it will still be fought. We are a very small piece of that 300,000. But I think what Frank Byron has said was this will be sort of a referendum of what the people in Litchfield want. If the people in Litchfield want to fight the pipeline, then yeah, they'll vote for the money. If they don't, they won't vote for the money. But it will still be fought.
Further discussion on Article 20?
Mr. Bohm is correct, okay? The selectmen proposed this warrant article because of what had happened over the last coming year. When the pipeline was decided, when it was announced the pipeline was coming through, we had a rush of citizens come in expressing their concerns about the pipeline coming through town, the hazards, everything attributed to it. So the selectmen then made a motion to put money aside to join in with the coalition so that we could fight it. And the selectmen also made a vote to oppose the pipeline coming through. With that said, we come up with this warrant article to put it back to the voter. So now the voters can decide. If you vote yes to fund this, we will continue the fight in the coalition. If you vote no, we will not have the money to do it. So then we'll be out. We'll take that as the citizens basically want the pipeline.
Well, I voted no for that reason. I can see a situation where somebody does support the pipeline, but wants to have legal representation to minimize the impact. And by including it all in one, you really can't get a read of what the community feels. If somebody wanted, but because they'll feel by voting for this, they're indicating they're in favor of the pipeline. But they very well might not be. But they still think that there should be legal representation. So had it been split into two articles, we would have had a more accurate read of the community. And to me, this just kind of jumbles it all up and doesn't provide the people the opportunity to truly tell us how they feel. Thanks.
Further discussion, Article 20? Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Article 21, Conservation Commission. To see if the town will vote to require the Conservation Commission to provide the Board of Selectmen, unless waived by the Board of Selectmen, with an independent property appraisal on land they wish to purchase prior to requesting Board of Selectmen approval, and to require the Conservation Commission to seek legal counsel review of purchase and sale agreements prior to approval of the Conservation Commission. Estimated 2016 tax rate impact is $0. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. Mr. Lemire.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is basically a housekeeping article. The board simply wants to protect the interests of the town when we move forward and purchase property under Conservation Commission action. Just want to make sure that the appraisals are done properly, that the town is paying, the Conservation Commission is paying the appropriate amount, and also that they seek legal counsel to review all of the agreements so that everything is appropriate as we move forward.
Further discussion, Article 21? Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Article 22, tax cap. Shall we adopt the provision of RSA 32:5, Section B, and implement the tax cap, whereby the Budget Committee shall not submit a recommended budget that increases the amount to be raised by local taxes based on the prior fiscal year's actual amount of local taxes raised by more than 5.5%. This requires a 3/5 vote, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 4-1. Mr. Byron.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make a motion to amend warrant Article 22 to read as follows. Shall we adopt the provisions of RSA 32:5B and implement a tax cap whereby the Budget Committee shall not submit a recommended budget that increases the amount to be raised by local taxes based on the prior fiscal year's actual amount of local taxes raised by more than $175,000.
Do we have a second? We have a second? Further discussion on the proposed amendment? Mr. Byron.
With the agreement of the moderator, I'd like to go through the presentation. I think that'll explain the whole purpose of this.
Yep.
Let me begin by talking a little bit about a tax cap and what it means. So RSA 32:5 provides for municipalities, that's cities and towns, to implement a tax cap. It is a cap on the amount of money raised by taxes when compared to the prior year. And it is put upon, in this case, because we have a functioning budget committee, it would be the requirement against the budget committee to limit their recommendations in terms of the budget, as well as all warrant articles, to stay within that tax cap. If you go further in here, the tax cap can be expressed in one of two ways. The way originally we proposed this was a percentage, and that's a perfectly valid way in order to propose a tax cap. In thinking this through, the Board of Selectmen felt that it's a lot easier for the citizens to understand a dollar amount. So hence, the purpose for my amendment would be to strike a dollar amount and use that as the limit as a tax cap so that we could use that going forward. A couple things in terms of adoption for a tax cap. A tax cap has to be adopted by you, the citizens of Litchfield, by a vote of 3/5. In other words, you have to have 3/5 of all the people voting approve a tax cap before it becomes effective. Likewise, if you wish to repeal a tax cap, it will require a 3/5 vote as well if it should be enacted in the town of Litchfield. The limitation in terms of the tax cap on the amount to be raised by taxes really includes several different things. It includes an operating budget, which includes expenditures, revenues, war service credits, and an overlay. War service credits are those credits that are given to service veterans for their service to the country in various conflicts that we've had as a nation. And an overlay is the amount of money that we apply to the budget to offset abatements. Thank you. It also includes, in the tax cap, selectmen warrant articles, as well as petition warrant articles. The Budget Committee, if we adopt the tax cap, will be submitting to the deliberative town session a budget which includes their recommendation on warrants, as well as revenues, expenses, that type of thing, that must be within that $175,000 that I amended the budget to, if that amendment is adopted. Otherwise, it would be 5.5%. You, the citizens of Litchfield, here at deliberative session, can override the tax cap if you feel that there's a good reason to do so. But it's up to you, the citizens, if you want to make a case to override the tax cap. So, how would you override a tax cap? It basically is done here at deliberative session using the same procedures that we're using today, where either a warrant article would be presented in some fashion, or an amendment to a budget warrant article, for example, could be presented, and you, the citizens, would have a chance to vote on it. If you voted in favor of it and it overrode, it exceeded the tax cap amount, then that amount would be considered an override. So where do we come up with the $175,000 figure from? Here's a 5-year average tax increase that we put together as a spreadsheet so that you could understand a little bit about how this works. The gross appropriation for the years, as you see that column, represents the amount of budget that was approved, the budget being the warrant article budget, along with any warrant articles that were also approved by the voters at the same time. That amount, in the case of 2015, let's take that as an example, totaled $5,669,698. That's decreased by the amount of revenues, and revenues comes through the town in various types of directions. It comes from collections at the recycling center. It comes through collections in the tax collector's office, that type of thing. But we have, generally speaking, about $2.4 million in revenues that offsets the gross appropriations. We then have a veterans tax credit that gets added in of about $115,000, and then an overlay to offset abatements of $51,000, which means that we had a tax effort of about give or take $4 million. And that's an increase of $313,916. So if the tax cap went through at $175,000, that $313,000 obviously is greater than that, we would exceed the tax cap. And you can get a sense as to how we've done over the years if you look at this chart. The average of all these years, when you come right down to it, it's about $169,000. When this was considered by the vote of the Board of Selectmen, we settled on a figure of $175,000. So you're all sitting there on the edge of your seat saying, what would happen in 2016's budget? What would that do if that $175,000 tax cap was in place? So the 2016, what they call net tax effort, you show in the column on the left. The 2016 net tax effort would be basically $3.6 million, shown on the column on the right. When you subtract the 16 minus the 15, you end up with $206,000. So we would fail the tax cap by about $31,800. Okay.
Further discussion?
I think one number you forgot, wouldn't if we kept it at the 5.5%, we could increase next year by $290,000?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
In other words, if you set the tax cap without this amendment, it can't be more than 5.5%. Quick math, 5.5% of this year's budget would be to about $297,000.
Okay, so it's not just the budget, it's what's called the tax effort. So you would have to take 5% of the $3.4 million from 15.
Sir.
John Latcher, 10 McElwain Drive, Litchfield, New Hampshire. Mr. Lemire, I believe that you were the only one that was against this. Could you tell us why?
Thank you, John. Yes, I am absolutely against a tax cap for the town of Litchfield. I've been in town for over 38 years. I've served for almost 10 years on the Budget Committee in several capacities. I've served in numerous areas of the town. I believe that we have in place right now for a town the appropriate and proper mechanism for determining and presenting a budget to the voters. We have the purest form of democracy. The voters vote directly on the budget. The Budget Committee does a great job, always has, of filtering the information it gets. Whether you agree, with their decision or not, they do a lot of work in presenting a budget to the town. This is their budget. This would handcuff the Budget Committee. In situations, if we had a tax cap for the town, then why, the Board of Selectmen could submit to the Budget Committee a tax cap budget, and then you would not even need the Budget Committee. They'd have to just vote to recommend it or not recommend it because they may have felt it was too high. But I think it adds another level of handcuffing, as far as I'm concerned, that may preclude me as a voter from properly determining what I feel is good for my town and what I pay for. So I am against the tax cap for the town.
Chris Pascucci, 12 Colonial. As a citizen and a taxpayer, there's two ways to look at it. As a fiscal conservative, as somebody that likes to keep an eye on where the tax dollars go, I believe there should be some, or even more, reasonable amount of so-called handcuffing. I think that's good. The more power and control you can leave in the voter, and the less you can give anybody up on both sides of those stage, or any elected official anywhere, I think is great. It's better for checks and balances. However, I don't even think there's much handcuffing anyway, because there are so many outs to this tax cap. Anybody right in this room, which could just override it. Also, the amount that was used, as for the cap, I mean, I would consider maybe if it was a $0 amount, I might call that one handcuffing. But even with that, it's not, because you could raise it to $500,000 going over the tax cap very easily. But what we did is we basically took what the increase is per year and called that the cap. So that's really not much of a cap, in my opinion, by way of any type of handcuffing. If you look at the budget, approximately 10 years ago, there was about 8,000 people in Litchfield. Budget was about $3.5 million. 10 years later, there was about 8,300 people in Litchfield, only 300 more, but the budget is up to about $5.5 million, a $2 million increase. So I guess the bottom line is every taxpayer in town has to realize your taxes are going to go up, both with the town, a couple hundred a year, and then with the school, and taxes will go up $400 or $500 every year for the average taxpayer. So I mean, that's a given. So basically anything that we could do to help limit that would be helpful. This won't limit any of that growth, even if you met the tax cap. This would just make it a little harder to spend $500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000 a year over what we normally do. So I don't see a downside to this, and I think it is a good idea to at least implement it, because as for the concern the selectmen have, or maybe even the budget committee, you could still spend as much as you wanted to. It could get through very easily if you wanted to go over it.
Ms. Couture.
Cindy Couture, 41 Stark Lane. In looking at this, we can see, and it's the previous slide, from 2010 to 2015, the actual expenditures vary quite widely, from a negative amount to over $300,000. My concern is this would prevent the Budget Committee from actually recommending items that are needed by the community. A fire truck would be a significant increase. So, major repairs, roadways, these are things that the Budget Committee analyzes on a year-to-year basis and determines if it's in the best interest of the taxpayers to recommend it or not. This would hamstring the Budget Committee so that even needed recommended items, we would have to not recommend, because we cannot submit a budget that would go over that $175,000 cap. So there may be things in a budget that the Budget Committee would like to see supported by the taxpayers, but the Budget Committee would not be able to support that, because we have to submit a budget, a supported budget, a recommended budget that doesn't go over this cap. So I see this as definitely hamstringing the Budget Committee in preventing it from being able to bring the best recommended budget forward to the community of Litchfield.
Mr. Barton, you got a comment? Or?
I think that there is a misunderstanding, and that misunderstanding is the following, that while the Budget Committee may not be able to recommend it, it will still come in front of the voters, and the voters can take a vote on that. There is nothing that says that the articles that are not recommended by the Budget Committee cannot come to the voters in the form of a different warrant article and be considered at that time as part of a tax cap override.
Mr. Lynch?
Kevin Lynch, 312 Charles Bancroft Highway. I went to the Board of Selectmen and I posed this. My biggest point is it hamstrings the taxpayers, okay? The selectmen are doing this. I agree with Mr. Lamire on this. It just about takes the budget committee away. We don't need them. If we have to replace a fire truck, which is not a cheap item, how would we be able to do this and stay within a tax cap without making two votes? Can we just put a warrant article in and it goes, but it's over the tax cap? What happens?
Exactly that. You put a warrant article in, and if the citizens vote for it, at deliberative, it overrides the tax cap.
So it does that. So in other words, just hamstrings the budget committee at this point, correct?
I wouldn't use the word hamstrings. It gives
Okay, I'll try
guidance to the budget committee in terms of the citizens' desire, in terms of what they want to see a budget controlled at.
So this includes petition and regular warrant article. Does not affect it. You still go on. We can vote it one way or the other, even though if it goes over that tax cap, correct?
Correct.
And the concern expressed earlier was that there was a not recommended on a particular warrant article that was discussed earlier. So while the citizens could choose to vote and override and not recommended, the concern is that the Budget Committee would have to not recommend a number of articles that they may actually support. So again, I think that not recommended would not be necessarily a true indication of whether the Budget Committee supports an article or not.
Mr. Bohm?
Yeah, further comment, correct my math before. Without the amendment, next year would be 190,000. So the 179,000 versus 190. So that's what we're voting on, the amendment.
Mr. Byron, further comments? Okay, we have a proposal, an amended proposal. We have a proposal to amend Article 22 to change it from 5.5% to a dollar value of $175,000. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. No. Can we have a raising of hands, please? All in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Stop moving. 9, 10, 12, 13. Those opposed, 13. Do it again, sorry, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Those opposed say no. Raise your hand. 21. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I have a 21 to 19 vote. The ayes have it. 22 passes. The amendment passes. The amendment to change the wording on Article 22 from a percentage to a dollar amount passes. Further discussion on the amended Article 22. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Bob Redding, 25 Nessakeg Drive. I will admit, I don't totally understand this article, but my main question is, we haven't needed this for the 35 years that I've been in this town. Why do we need it now?
Good question.
It was the belief of the citizens of Litchfield that we wanted this article. Last year on the ballot in 2015, it was asked if the Board of Selectmen should bring forward a warrant article for a tax cap. Overwhelmingly, that article passed. So hence, this year, you have the tax cap warrant article to consider on the ballot. So the Board of Selectmen has presented that last year. The citizens overwhelmingly voted it last year and wanted that, and now this is what comes forward.
Just one follow-up concern that I have is that sometimes when there's tax caps, if there's something needed by a town that most people in town need, that can be overridden or passed. But when there's a need in town, but it doesn't affect a vast majority of town members, sometimes that can get short-rifted in a tax cap. That's my opinion on it. Thank you.
Mr. Bohm.
Also, there's been talk of tax caps ever since I've been in town. The problem is, the previous law was being fought, and in one case it lost, and in another case it won, so there was some question whether or not tax cap being legal. So I think the last session, the law was fixed to take care of those legal cases, which is, wow, it's a whole lot simpler now for towns to have a tax cap without having lawsuits.
Further discussion on the amended article.
The subject was just brought up about, why is this needed now? It's really not needed. It was brought to the voters last year, and the voters did overwhelmingly say they want this brought this year with an actual number assigned to it. So what I got from that is, why would somebody last year vote to bring forward a tax cap if they were totally happy and satisfied with the current rate of tax increases they're paying? So somebody must have voted yes on that, thinking that I want to restrict or curb or maybe even slightly handcuff or make it a little bit more difficult to spend money to have my taxes go up at the rate it's going up. Now, if I'm wrong with that assessment, maybe, but that's what I saw from it. It was also said clearly, if something is needed by this town, a fire truck, right? A fire truck gets really old, it doesn't work anymore, can't put out fires. Well, that's going to pass. That's going to be voted in with or without a tax cap. But precisely for maybe that one thing, whatever it might be, that's really expensive, that only affects a tiny little part of the community and not everybody, well, I guess that's precisely why people want that so-called handcuff. So it's not buried in the budget. It just doesn't go through. Not maybe just a handful of people at Deliberative get it passed. That's the reason for a tax cap, because there are increases every year. Taxes are going up. There's no new homes being built. We might have a slight increase in motor vehicle registrations now, but that might not go on forever. So revenues aren't going to increase forever. It just means taxes are going to keep going up. So it begins a discussion. If there's something in this town that somebody really, or a small handful of people want, they have to go through the process of talking to the Board of Selectmen, going through the process of going to the Budget Committee, and maybe even put it on a warrant and see if the people vote for it. I just think this allows great input. I don't think this handcuffs the community at all. I think this gives them more choice and more opportunity for discussion. If you really want something, if there's 10 people in this town that really want something that 2,500 people are going to pay for, let's start the discussion. The easy stuff is if 25 people really want something that 2,500 people are going to use, that's an easy one. Big scheme of things, I'm not for tax caps anyway, because I believe in also just voting. If you think people you elect are spending too much money, don't vote them in next time. But I understand that people listen, maybe trust, maybe carry some weight of what the decisions are. So for those, I think this tax cap is a good, reasonable handcuff.
Further discussion on the amended Article 22.
Moderator?
Yes.
I just want to be clear on one thing, and Council pointed it out, and it may not have been clear when I explained this. If this tax cap is approved, it would not affect the 2016 budget. It would only affect the two starting in the 2017 budget. So just to make sure you understand that.
Further discussion on the amendment, on the amended Article 22. Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as amended. Article 23, by petition to see if the town will vote to open the LCTV studio to all Litchfield residents for public access television. This would have a net cost to the 2016 general taxation of $0.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for allowing me to speak to the residents of Litchfield here and at home. My name is John Latcher, and I reside at 10 McElwain Drive here in Litchfield, New Hampshire, with my wife and 2 children. And I am the petitioner of this petition warrant article.
John, speak into the microphone a little bit.
Sorry. That good?
Go ahead.
To see if the town will vote to open the LCTV studio to all Litchfield residents. This would have a net cost for public access television. This would have a net cost to the 2016 general taxation of $0. I would like to publicly thank all the residents who signed my petition as I walked the streets of Litchfield. It was a pleasure meeting all of you and talking to all of you. I would just like to add that if anyone knows, anybody that knows how to replace doorbells, they would make a fortune in this town. I would tell you that right now. My petition warrant article is straightforward. It asks to see if the town will vote to open the LCTV studio to all Litchfield residents at no cost to the taxpayer. So all Litchfield residents, if they have an interest in community and public access television, they could use this facility at no charge. Let me explain what public access television is. Public access television is the production of videos by the community to be shown to the community. These videos come from individuals as well as community groups. So if you wanted to do your own show, you could do that. If you wanted to show that the residents of town an interesting recipe, you would be able to do that. If you are a magician and you wanted to show how you can make all our property tax bills disappear, you could do that as well. At no cost to you, the funding to support the studio would come out of the cable revolving fund that the taxpayers passed 2-to-1 in 2012. Comcast pays this town money from franchise fees every year to support our community television stations. So if the studio needed any renovations, that money would be used to cover that cost. I really got a passion for community television when I had a public service announcement video on the move over law, which is a law to move over or slow down for police, fire, tow truck operators, and other first responders in the breakdown lane of our roads and highways. I wanted to educate the public on this important law and get the word out. I didn't have a lot of money to get the word out, so I thought, why don't I take the video and go to a community television station and see if they could get it on the air for free. It would be seen by hundreds and thousands of people. I went to over 30 community cable stations in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and they put it on the air at no charge. And while I was there, they let me tour their studios. All the stations have studios. All the stations have cameras for the studios, even in the smallest communities. Then I asked myself, why not here in Litchfield? We have absolutely nothing. Nothing. In fact, I believe Litchfield is the only community television station in the state of New Hampshire with no studio. Ladies and gentlemen, I am one person, a resident who wants to make this town better. What's wrong with that? I can try to make a change. I need you, the residents and voters of our town, to make a difference. You literally hold the key to unlocking the door which has been closed for much too long. Let's open the door to all Litchfield residents. Please join me to make that happen. Please remember to vote on March 8th here at Campbell High School. Thank you very much.
Further discussion, Article 23, Mr. Bohm.
Thank you. I'm all in I'm all in favor of this, but I've been to other studios. They have a full staff or at least somebody that's gonna run the equipment. Somebody's gonna have to be there.
Right.
And how can it be no cost? Somebody, even if it's no cost and it's gonna be paid for by the cable funds, somebody's still gonna have to be paid or give their time, and if it's opened all the time, somebody's gonna have to be there all the time, or is it gonna be some rules and controls?
Yeah, that would have to be controlled by the cable community, committee.
Yeah, and that's why I think that needs a little work on that, to say, depending on schedule, because
Right.
the way that reads, it's, I can walk in at any time. I just,
Yeah.
Sir?
Dick Pentheny, 5 Nathan Drive. Ralph actually just stole my thunder. We do not have a manned studio at this point. We have a transmission point, a place where we can broadcast the 3 channels. We're working on getting a staff. There's been very little interest in the town. We've tried, I've been a chairman for 15 years, and there's been very little interest in the town from anybody coming to us wanting to do programming. Love to see it. We can do it now, we can do it at Town Hall, but we do not have a facility set up at the studio at this point, or is it manned.
Thank you. Further discussion on Article 23? None? You'll hear it on the ballot. You'll see it on the ballot as written. Thank you. We're at the end. Before we close, I'd like to remind everyone that the warrant articles discussed tonight will appear on the ballot as written or amended, or if amended, as amended. The next deliberative section is next Saturday, the day before the Super Bowl. Voting day is at CHS on March 8th from 7 to 7. For the town election, we have the primary coming up on the 9th. What else? That's it. Would someone like to make a motion to close the meeting today? Seconded? Do we have a second? All in favor say aye if you'd like to close the meeting. Aye. Those opposed say no. Have a nice day. Thank you for coming.